Let's get back to the East African Community heads of state who on Tuesday admitted the Democratic Republic of Congo into the regional bloc, becoming the 7th and the newest member of the community after South Sudan. President Uhuru Kenyatta is the current chairman of the bloc, which also comprises of Burundi, Kenya, Rwanda, Tanzania, and Uganda. DRC's admission was approved at the 19th Extraordinary Summit of EAC Heads of State conducted virtually. The proposal to admit DR Congo was presented by the EAC Council of Ministers, which held the 48th Extraordinary Council meeting last Friday to put the final touches on the admission plan. To broaden this latest development in East Africa for us tonight is the managing partner at GBS Africa, Agnes Jetao. Agnes joins me from the city of London. Thank you so much. A good evening to you. Great to have you.
So it's a pleasure, Austin. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. This is a very big development, I'm sure. But what is the overarching objective behind bringing the DR Congo into the membership of the East African community?
Bigger market means economies of scale, provides an opportunity not only for DRC, but for the original members of the East African community. 90 million people, making the region perhaps the 4th largest economic bloc. I think that is beneficial for each member of the EAC, but most importantly, DRC, which is a resource-rich country, will access ports of Mombasa and Tanzania. People of the Congolese will be able to move freely from one country to another, and also goods and services will ultimately be able to move from DRC to the region. This is after the treaties of common market and custom union have been ratified.
Interesting. Who wanted to join? Was it the EAF's East African community under President Kenyatta? Befriending the DR Congo, or is it President Tshisekedi in DR Congo who's looking at his neighbors to the east rather than to the west to say, look, I would like to join your economic bloc? There must be something happening in the East African community that will be attractive to DR Congo. Is it distance? Is it what's the affinity there? Tell me. You are from Kenya, by the way, so you should know.
Boston, I wish I knew, but I must tell you this. Look, the East African community is quite an attractive region, but I guess our businessmen, the business community within the region, looks at the phenomenal possibility in DRC. Look, 100,000 tons of cobalt produced in that country. It's 70% of global cobalt comes from DRC. It's a magnet for investment, and I guess that's what attracts our business community into this region. But also, for DRC's case, they see a stable, an economically stable region with fairly structures that looks like if DRC joins, obviously there is potential for their business to benefit. So I think it goes both ways.
Yeah, it goes both ways. But again, how would the DR Congo fit into the high-stake political power play of East Africa, dominated by the two big brothers, Kenya and Uganda?
I think one of the conditions for becoming a member of the community is political stability. And you're aware, particularly in the Eastern Congo, there has always been political instability. My view is that by becoming a member, signing up to the community, it means that members of EAC will no longer sit and watch instability in Congo. It means we can harmonize the defense, security issues within the region, because if one member of the community has struggles, obviously it has an impact to the rest of the region. So my view is that this newest member of the community perhaps will gain from already political stability or fairly stable political systems within the East Africa community.
But you know, just like you said earlier in your comment, DR Congo is bringing size to the table. the demography is there. It's also bringing mineral resources that are not as huge as it were in either in Uganda, Tanzania, or so. So, do you think President Tshisekedi will want to sit at the table and look President Kenyatta straight in the face and say, "Look, you were the largest economy east of the continent. I was the biggest economy, Central Africa. So here we are at the table. We are equal." Or do you think at some point they could begin to see some power play to say, who is the biggest boy in the room?
No, the community is of shared value, and there isn't a more equal member. I guess everybody brings value to the table, and I think that's the vision of each of the EAC members. I think ultimately, DRC becoming a member of the EAC, I think this contributes to the greater vision of the wider ACFTA. So, Boston, in response to your question, it's not about who is more stronger or economic powerful than the other. It is what opportunity everybody brings to the table. And I see equal partners because they all have something to benefit from this.
You know, Agnes, that Uganda, Tanzania, East Africa is already part of COMESA, okay, which is the common market for East and Southern Africa. Now you're adding DR Congo to it. So are we rewriting the concept of what you call regional integration? In other words, if you go all the way from Nairobi and go all the way to DR Congo, that's way out of what you call the traditional East Africa. So this whole regional integration, is it still, as it were, in using the old map of geography to point who is where? Or is the world changing?
It is changing indeed. Initially, the initial members of the East African community were of the former English colonies, right? Then we saw Burundi joining the community. We saw Rwanda and South Sudan. So I think it's moving beyond the traditional borders that were created by the colonial masters. And in my view, Boston, is that stronger economic blocks will only add value to that continental vision of ACFTA. So I won't be surprised to see Malawi or Zambia coming up into the system. And already, Boston, the economic bloc already have systems that seem to work. They already have established common market. They already have established customs union. Look, the EAC is moving towards a monetary union and ultimately a political co-federation. I'm not sure whether that will ever happen, but I think what this will contribute to, and I think what this ultimately promotes, is integrated region where goods and services are able to move from one country to another, where we have harmonized standards, we have harmonized regulations. And what does that do, Boston? It creates opportunities for economic growth and also gives investors a confidence that our market are rich and competitive for investment.
Interesting how things are changing, Agnes. That means that when we say East African community, it's no longer the traditional British colonial, former colonies, as it were, but now it's by virtue of who becomes a member of that. So I'm not sure if there's going to be a need for a change of name before we begin to think of East and West. But what are your expectations? You talk about that a little bit. So here we were, over the last few years, Morocco in North Africa has been angling to join ECOWAS. Do you think that should now be considered? Do you think folks in West Africa here should begin to listen to Morocco all the way from North Africa, and join us here in the West? Because it's now open skies, open borders. That's what you're telling me.
Absolutely, Boston, and why not? I think ECOWAS will need to evaluate what value does Morocco brings to the economic bloc, right? And I think it has to move beyond. And I think seeing DRC, which is in the southern or the central part of the continent, being accepted into the eastern part of the region, I think it moves beyond. The vision here is to trade, right? We know we can never develop without promotion of trade. If Morocco brings value to ECOWAS if goods and services from the West can access the Northern African market and vice versa. I think that has value. These artificial borders, they are expensive, particularly for trade, and they make it very difficult for businesses to operate. I think this is the future. This is the future that will move beyond. We see a future where there is no border from Cape to Timbuktu, that Africa is able to trade and Africans are able to move from one corner to the other. And I think that is beneficial for
interesting here, Agnes. We're having a very interesting conversation because removing the colonial blocks, as it were, in terms of this is ECOWAS, this is West, this is North, and now becomes, you think trade, finance is now, economy is what decides who is where, not longer by virtue of whether you were colonized by France or by Britain or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think we need to start seeing beyond this. And look, these regional economic blocks, in my view, are a success because this is what the industry wants. And to see the political class responding to the needs of businesses, whereby the businesses are saying, look, these borders make it difficult for goods to move from one end to another. So therefore, as you say, we have to move beyond the borders because they make it impossible, and they create barriers which make it impossible for businesses to thrive.
Break down the barriers, one Africa, one market, 1 billion people. Thank you so much, Agnes Chita. A very interesting development coming through from your region. Managing partner at GBS Africa in London. Thank you. Have a pleasant evening.